Welcome, dear listeners, to another journey through myth and timeless wisdom. Tonight, we step into a world where gods and mortals meet. It is a world where symbols carry power deeper than swords or shields. Our story begins with Athena, radiant goddess of wisdom and strategy. Her presence was calm, her mind sharp, her vision always clear. Athena was not only a guardian of cities, but a guide for the human spirit. In her hand, she carried a spear unlike any other ever known. This spear was not forged for destruction, nor for blood or conquest. It was a beacon, a symbol of clarity, justice, and eternal truth. Through ages, poets, artists, and philosophers told its story. It pierced not flesh, but the veil of ignorance that clouds the mind. It pointed not toward war, but toward growth, reason, and light. In Athens, her beloved city, it stood as a promise of wisdom. To citizens, it reminded them of courage found in thought. To leaders, it whispered guidance when choices felt heavy. The eternal spear of wisdom was more than myth. It was hope. Hope for a world guided by knowledge instead of fear. Tonight, we follow its story across time and imagination. And together, we hold the light of Athena's wisdom in our hearts. Welcome, dear listeners, to another journey through myth and timeless wisdom. Tonight, we step into a world where gods and mortals meet. It is a world where symbols carry power deeper than swords or shields. Our story begins with Athena, radiant goddess of wisdom and strategy. Her presence was calm, her mind sharp, her vision always clear. Athena was not only a guardian of cities, but a guide for the human spirit. In her hand, she carried a spear unlike any other ever known. This spear was not forged for destruction, nor for blood or conquest. It was a beacon, a symbol of clarity, justice, and eternal truth. Through ages, poets, artists, and philosophers told its story. It pierced not flesh, but the veil of ignorance that clouds the mind. It pointed not toward war, but toward growth, reason, and light. In Athens, her beloved city, it stood as a promise of wisdom. To citizens, it reminded them of courage found in thought. To leaders, it whispered guidance when choices felt heavy. The eternal spear of wisdom was more than myth. It was hope. Hope for a world guided by knowledge instead of fear. Tonight, we follow its story across time and imagination. And together, we hold the light of Athena's wisdom in our hearts. The spear of Athena was unlike any other, a symbol crafted not of war, but of meaning. It was not cold bronze or sharpened steel, but an emblem of truth carried in her hand. Each detail of the spear spoke a language far deeper than iron or flame could tell. Its point did not hunger for battle. It longed instead to pierce the fog of confusion. Its shaft was steady, reminding mortals that wisdom is the root of all endurance. When the light of dawn touched it, the spear gleamed as though alive with thought. Poets whispered that it shone brighter than the stars guiding sailors across dark seas. To them, the spear was a compass, a reminder that wisdom leads where force cannot. Philosophers saw it as an eternal question, sharp, clear, and always seeking answers. To artists, it was a line drawn between ignorance and enlightenment, shadow and light. Athena carried it not as a weapon to destroy, but as a promise to uplift. When she walked through Athens, her spear pointed always toward reason and growth. Children saw it and dreamed not of war, but of justice and learning. Leaders saw it and remembered that power must rest upon wisdom to endure. The spear was the breath of strategy, cutting through chaos with calm and clarity. It was the light that showed paths hidden beneath fear and doubt. Every tale that carried Athena's name carried the image of her shining spear. On pottery, on marble, on bronze, the spear was drawn again and again. It was no simple ornament, but the very sign of her eternal presence. To mortals, it became more than a divine object. It became a mirror reflecting the truth that wisdom is the greatest strength of all. The spear stood tall in art and memory, pointing toward a higher way of living. It asked no blood, demanded no conquest, yet it held immense authority. Those who saw it felt both comfort and challenge within their hearts. Comfort, because it promised justice and fairness in times of struggle. Challenge, because it urged each soul to seek truth and abandon falsehood. The eternal spear was the voice of reason that whispered in moments of doubt. It told mortals that every decision is a chance to walk the path of clarity. It reminded them that the sharpest edge is not violence, but understanding. Athena's spear was carried into stories of heroes, yet it was never theirs to own. They borrowed its light, its wisdom, when they needed guidance in dark hours. But it always returned to Athena, radiant in her calm and steady hand. The spear did not belong to one person. It belonged to the idea of wisdom itself. Through centuries, as empires rose and fell, its meaning never dimmed. The eternal spear stood firm in myth, a constant flame in human memory. Even when swords rusted and shields broke, the spear remained untarnished. It endured because it was not of metal, but of spirit and understanding. It lived in libraries, in schools, in quiet corners where questions were asked. It lived in the courage of citizens who spoke with honesty and reason. It lived in the voices of teachers passing knowledge from one soul to another. The spear became eternal because it was never just held. It was shared. Each generation who sought truth lifted it anew in their own hands. And though unseen, its light still shines in every choice for wisdom today. Athena's spear is eternal because wisdom itself never fades or falls. It is a flame carried across ages, across cultures, across every human heart. And as long as truth is sought, the spear will forever remain unbroken. Athena was not only a goddess of wisdom, she was also a guardian of cities and people. Among the great cities of Greece, one rose with her name etched into its very soul. Athens was not just a place of stone and marble, but a vision built on her guiding hand. Legends tell that when gods sought to bless the land, Athena offered her greatest gift. She planted the olive tree, a symbol of peace, prosperity, and enduring strength. The people chose her gift, and from that moment, she became their eternal protector. Her spear, gleaming in the sunlight, was raised not to divide, but to unite. It stood above the Acropolis as a promise that wisdom would always light their path. To the citizens, the spear was a reminder that knowledge and peace were true defenses. It whispered that walls could crumble, but truth would always stand firm. When storms swept across the Aegean, Athenians prayed to her calm guidance. When disputes filled the agora, they sought her spirit of reason and fairness. The spear pointed beyond fear, toward choices shaped by clarity and justice. She guarded Athens not with battle cries, but with the steady light of her wisdom. Children grew beneath her watch, learning that the mind was the sharpest tool of all. Philosophers built their schools in her city, believing her presence guided thought. Socrates asked questions under her gaze, searching for truth beyond easy answers. Plato dreamed of ideals, while her spear pointed toward visions of justice. Even the stones of the Parthenon seemed to glow with her eternal presence. Travelers who entered the city felt the calm strength that her protection offered. They saw her statues, her spear shining, her eyes steady, and her spirit alive. Athens thrived because its heart beat with her promise of wisdom and progress. Trade flourished, art blossomed, and debate thrived beneath her guiding light. The olive tree she gave grew into a forest of thought, reaching across the world. Her spear was always present, a silent witness to the birth of democracy. It pointed not toward kings, but toward citizens gathered to shape their future. It guided voices in the assembly, where ideas rose like waves on the sea. Even in moments of struggle, the Athenians looked to her for balance and strength. For them, Athena was not distant. She walked with them in spirit and in mind. Her spear reminded them that power was empty without wisdom to guide it. Generals learned that victory meant little without the peace that followed. Leaders discovered that justice must be as firm as the olive roots she planted. Artists carved her image, always with spear and shield, eternal yet gentle. Each sculpture told the same truth. Wisdom protects more deeply than violence. Athena's guardianship was not of walls, but of hearts and minds seeking truth. Her spear was the skyline of Athens, symbol taller than towers or temples. It reached into the heavens, reminding all who saw it that wisdom endures. Even centuries later, ruins of Athens still echo her spirit of protection. Stones broken by time still carry the mark of her eternal guardianship. The city's name remains, a living tribute to the goddess who guided it. Athena, the guardian of cities, carried her spear as a promise never broken. She showed that a city is not strong by stone alone, but by the wisdom within. Her gift to Athens was not just protection, but the vision of a better way. A vision where people walk with courage, truth, and the light of understanding. And so the eternal spear of wisdom rose above the city, calm and unshakable. It pointed always forward, carrying the promise that knowledge leads to peace. For Athens, and for all who dream of a just world, Athena remains its guardian. Justice has always been a fragile flame, flickering in the winds of human desire and fear. Athena's spear was not raised to strike, but to steady that flame against the storm. It stood as a symbol of fairness, reminding mortals of the weight of every choice. When disputes arose, the spear was imagined between voices, dividing anger from reason. It did not silence passion, but guided it toward clarity and balance. In the courts of Athens, her spirit was present when citizens gathered to decide. The spear was invisible, yet powerful, pointing toward truth in times of uncertainty. Jurors believed they sat under her watchful gaze, steady as the olive roots she gave. Athena was never blind to justice. Her eyes were open, sharp, and unwavering. She saw beyond excuses, beyond pride, beyond the shadows men tried to cast. Her spear pierced deception as light cuts through the veil of night. When leaders faltered, her presence whispered, reminding them that power must serve fairness. She taught that justice is not vengeance, but balance between mercy and truth. Her guidance was clear. Fairness protects the weak without dishonoring the strong. The spear became a quiet law, binding not by force, but by moral weight. It reminded rulers that crowns crumble when justice is forgotten. It warned the people that freedom cannot live without responsibility. Philosophers spoke of her spear when they pondered the nature of right and wrong. They saw in it the eternal principle that truth must cut through ignorance. Children grew hearing tales of her judgments, wise and steady like flowing rivers. They learned that wisdom is not silence, but the courage to speak with clarity. Artists carved her image, spear in hand, standing between conflict and harmony. Every statue told the story that fairness is the truest protection of society. When the assembly gathered, her spear pointed toward reason, not selfish desire. It was a reminder that laws must serve all, not only the few in power. Even in silence, her presence gave weight to the voices of the unheard. The eternal spear of justice was a shield for those seeking dignity and truth. It cut not with pain, but with the strength of honesty and fairness. Athena did not demand perfection, but she demanded sincerity in choice. Her spear taught that justice is a journey, not a single decree. It is a path walked daily, through debate, through kindness, through truth. Every decision, great or small, was touched by the light of her wisdom. She showed that to choose fairness is to honor the gods and honor humanity. Athena's justice was not rigid stone, but living, breathing balance. Like the olive tree, it bent in storms, but never broke in its roots. Her spear reminded all that fairness must serve both heart and mind. It must weigh mercy as carefully as it weighs truth. The greatest leaders of Athens carried her lessons into their decisions. They knew that lasting peace is born from justice, not force of arms. They remembered that a city stands strong only when its laws are just. Through her, justice became not a punishment, but a light guiding society forward. Her spear did not rest in silence. It glowed wherever truth was spoken. It lived in the courage of those who defended the innocent. It lived in the wisdom of those who listened before they judged. It lived in the strength of those who placed fairness above pride. Athena's spear was eternal, because justice itself must never fade. It was the promise that truth will always outshine the shadow of lies. And even now, across centuries, her lesson whispers to every heart. Choose fairness, seek balance, walk with clarity, and you carry her spear. Heroes often rose in the stories of Greece, but few walked without the wisdom of Athena. Her presence was not always thunderous or seen, yet it guided their every step. The eternal spear of wisdom was not theirs to hold, but its light touched their paths. Heracles, the strongest of men, faced trials beyond the measure of mortal strength. Yet in the silence of his doubt, Athena's calm voice offered strategy and clarity. Her spear did not strike for him, but it showed the path where courage met wisdom. Each labor became not only a test of power, but of thought and endurance. Perseus, the slayer of monsters, would not have prevailed by strength alone. Athena placed a shield in his hand, a reflection of truth against deceit. Her spear pointed toward patience, reminding him that clear sight wins over fear. He saw not a weapon in her gift, but the strength of reason in her guidance. Odysseus, master of wit and endless journeys, carried her spirit in every trial. In storm and in exile, it was her wisdom that sharpened his cunning. Her spear whispered through his choices, guiding words sharper than swords. When deception surrounded him, Athena's light pierced the fog of lies. It was never brute force that saved him, but clever thought born of her counsel. Each hero carried her presence like a flame within their spirit. The spear of Athena was the line between reckless action and measured steps. It reminded them that true strength was not in arms, but in understanding. In art and tale, heroes were never alone. Her watchful eye was always near. Heracles lifted boulders, but Athena taught him to lift the weight of wisdom. Perseus faced shadows, but Athena taught him to see with eyes beyond fear. Odysseus wandered seas, but Athena taught him that mind is the greatest compass. The spear was eternal because it lived in the courage of those she guided. It never left her hand, yet its light was carried by all who listened. Heroes became legends not for power, but for the wisdom that shaped their actions. Even the bravest knew strength without thought is fragile as glass. Athena's lessons made their triumphs endure beyond time and memory. Her spear was the promise that wisdom would always guide the worthy. When poets sang of these heroes, Athena's name was never far behind. Her counsel was the thread woven through each great victory told in song. Without her, the tales would be of broken strength and fleeting glory. With her, they became lessons for all who dream of courage with clarity. The spear gleamed in the stories as a symbol of hope and guidance. It told mortals that even the greatest heroes need wisdom to prevail. It told rulers that strength without reason is a path to ruin. And it told children that the mind is as mighty as the arm. Athena's guidance shaped not only men, but the very spirit of Greek ideals. She taught that victory was not conquest, but the harmony of thought and deed. She showed that the true measure of a hero lies in wisdom's embrace. Heracles, Perseus, Odysseus, all bore her unseen hand in their journeys. And through them, her spear became eternal, a light never extinguished. For heroes may fall, but the wisdom that guides them lives forever. The eternal spear of wisdom was their silent ally, their invisible guide. And in every triumph told across ages, Athena's light shines still. There are objects in myth that carry stories deeper than their shining form. Athena's spear was one such object, more than wood and bronze, more than divine light. It was a vessel of meaning, a thread woven into the hearts of those who remembered. The spear spoke not in words, but in lessons passed from one generation to the next. Its gleam was the reminder that wisdom, once seen, cannot be forgotten or hidden. Artists etched it into stone, not as a weapon, but as a beacon of clarity. They carved it pointing upward, as if reaching to the sky for truth everlasting. Poets described it as the steady star guiding ships across dark seas. For in their songs, the spear was not sharp steel, but a light of the mind. When storytellers gathered by the fire, children leaned close to hear its tale. They learned that strength fades, but wisdom endures through memory and story. Every village had its version, yet each held the same essence of her gift. The spear was constant, though its shape shifted in the mouths of different voices. Some said it glowed with the light of dawn, others said it shimmered like starlight. But all agreed it was eternal, a symbol of thought carried through time. It was not bound to temples or statues, but lived in the choices of people. Each decision shaped by fairness carried a spark of Athena's presence. Each act of reason brought the hidden spear into the world again. Fathers spoke of it when teaching sons to lead with patience, not anger. Mothers told of it when guiding daughters to trust their strength of mind. Travelers whispered of it when solving disputes far from their homeland. The spear was a story that walked with humanity, unseen yet always present. And so it became more than myth. It became a living symbol of wisdom. Philosophers in the Agora spoke of Athena's spear as the image of reason. They argued that it cut through illusion, leaving only what was true. Their words shaped schools of thought that still echo beyond ancient walls. Socrates asked questions sharper than blades, his voice guided by the same light. Plato's dialogues painted wisdom as eternal, much like Athena's shining spear. Aristotle measured truth with logic, walking the same path of clarity. Through them, the spear passed silently into the roots of human thought. It was not seen, but it was always there, steady as the olive tree. Every culture that touched Greece carried fragments of this symbol onward. Romans honored her as Minerva. Yet the spear still glowed with wisdom's flame. Centuries later, scholars found echoes of Athena in their search for truth. They built libraries and schools as temples to the eternal spear. And though ages changed, the story of the spear never lost its shine. For myths endure not in the marble of statues, but in the breath of memory. The spear of Athena was never only hers. It belonged to all who sought wisdom. Its story became a mirror, showing mortals their own power of thought. It reminded them that clarity is within, waiting like light beneath the surface. Athena's gift was eternal because it lived in every act of reason. Even now, when we choose truth over deceit, her spear glimmers again. Even now, when we balance heart and mind, we carry her light forward. The spear's tale teaches us that wisdom is not past, but present. It is not lost in myth, but alive in every choice of fairness and clarity. Thus, the eternal spear of wisdom is not forgotten, nor ever will it fade. It stands with us, guiding quietly, as it always has, and always shall. Long after the heroes had faded into memory, the spear of Athena still glowed in human thought. It was no longer seen in marble halls or painted on ancient pottery, yet its essence endured. The Romans, inheritors of Greek wisdom, gave Athena a new name, Minerva. But even with a new name, the meaning of her eternal spear remained unchanged. They saw in it the balance of strategy and fairness, of clarity and strength. For Rome too desired wisdom to temper its growing power across the world. Minerva's spear was invoked not in battles, but in council and in law. It was present in the Senate, where voices argued for the good of the Republic. It stood as a symbol that decisions must serve justice, not only ambition. Roman poets wrote of her as the guardian of knowledge, shining in their verses. They sang that her spear pierced the fog of arrogance, guiding leaders to reason. Scholars and generals alike sought her guidance before stepping into uncertainty. For even empires knew that wisdom is the foundation upon which power rests. Without it, strength crumbles like stone left to the mercy of time. The spear was not worshipped as an idol, but lived in the spirit of governance. It reminded rulers that fairness holds greater strength than fear or domination. It reminded citizens that true order comes from clarity, not blind obedience. Minerva's presence in Rome was quiet but unshakable, steady as in Greece. Her spear remained eternal, carried forward through stories, art, and philosophy. The empire expanded, but so too did the story of the goddess of wisdom. Even in distant provinces, echoes of her tale found new life in local voices. The spear became a bridge, linking cultures through the shared pursuit of truth. It spoke silently across borders, telling all who listened that wisdom belongs to all. For truth does not bow to nations, and fairness knows no single people. Minerva's spear was a universal symbol, a light for humanity itself. As centuries turned, the empire shifted, and with it, the world changed. Yet through every change, the story of her eternal spear endured. It was carved in stone, written in scrolls, whispered in classrooms of scholars. It was kept alive not by temples, but by memory in the human heart. The spear reminded each age that wisdom never dies, it only transforms. What once guided heroes now guided rulers, thinkers, and dreamers. It guided the pen of poets, the hand of lawmakers, the voice of philosophers. It became a part of history, woven into the very roots of culture. The eternal spear was not only Athena's, not only Minerva's, it was everyone's. It was a light passed down, a flame burning brighter each time it was shared. It lived in the courage to speak truth, in the strength to choose fairness. It lived in the patient hand that built peace instead of fueling conflict. The story of the spear grew beyond Greece, beyond Rome, into the heart of humanity. It was eternal because it could not be held by one, nor lost by many. It was eternal because its message was as clear as the first dawn. Wisdom is light, and those who seek it carry the spear in spirit. Thus, the legacy of Athena's gift was not bound to ruins or forgotten myths. It walked with people as they built cities, wrote laws, and dreamed of justice. Her spear remained unseen, yet it was present in every age of reason. And even now, its glow lingers in the choices we make each day. In the quiet centuries that followed the fall of empires, stories still carried Athena's eternal spear. It no longer shone in marble temples or echoed in the halls of power, but it was never lost. The Middle Ages wrapped the world in shadows of faith, war, and uncertainty. Yet even there, wisdom found its way, disguised in new forms, hidden in new voices. Scholars in monasteries whispered truths, copying books that carried the spear's light. They believed knowledge must endure, even if only ink on fragile parchment. The spear gleamed in their dedication, steady as candlelight in vast silence. In distant lands, outside of Greece and Rome, echoes of her gift appeared again. Philosophers of the East spoke of balance, harmony, and the pursuit of truth. Their words, though different, walked the same path as Athena's wisdom. The spear was not bound to one culture, but belonged to all who sought clarity. Travelers along the Silk Road carried stories, trading goods and ideas alike. Some spoke of a goddess of wisdom who held a shining spear of light. Others told of symbols much the same, pointing always toward truth eternal. Thus the spear crossed mountains, deserts, seas, and languages without losing meaning. It survived not by monuments, but by the breath of memory passed between people. Artists painted it as a star, a guiding flame, a vision of divine insight. It became a symbol that knowledge is light against the world's endless night. Even in times of silence, the story never truly faded away. When universities rose in Europe, Athena's light seemed to shine once more. Her spear was seen in the hands of statues carved at the gates of learning. Scholars spoke her name with reverence, calling on wisdom to guide their pursuit. Every question asked, every page turned, was another spark of her eternal flame. The spear lived in curiosity itself, the courage to seek and to wonder. It lived in the minds of those who refused to let truth be silenced. Even when knowledge was hidden or feared, the spear shone all the brighter. For wisdom is stubborn, and it will always find its way forward. Through centuries of darkness, Athena's spear glowed like a hidden ember. When touched, it ignited again into a brilliant flame for those ready to see. It reminded humanity that learning is sacred, thought is powerful, truth is eternal. And though her temples crumbled, her story never turned to dust. The spear did not need marble. It needed only hearts that dared to listen. It needed minds willing to seek clarity, even in a world of confusion. Thus it was passed quietly, invisibly, through centuries that might have forgotten it. But wisdom does not vanish. It waits, patient as the olive tree in winter. When spring returns, the leaves grow anew, just as wisdom blooms again. The eternal spear was not lost in the Middle Ages. It was preparing. It was waiting for the moment when humanity would once more lift its eyes. And when the age of learning and light returned, the spear was already there. It stood as it always had, steady, unbroken, eternal, guiding forward. Athena's gift had crossed time itself, shining across every shadowed age. And still, it waited for the world to recognize its glow once more. The Renaissance dawned like a sunrise after the long night of silence. Cities flourished, artists painted, thinkers dreamed, and the world awoke. And with this awakening, Athena's eternal spear shimmered into view again. It was not seen as a weapon, but as a symbol of light and discovery. Painters carved her image into frescoes, a goddess with calm and radiant eyes. In her hand, the spear gleamed, not sharp, but luminous with meaning. It pointed to the sky, reminding all that truth is infinite and vast. Scholars gathered in universities, searching ancient texts for forgotten wisdom. Every book opened was like lifting the spear into the light of day. In Florence, Rome, and Venice, Athena's name returned in whispers and stone. The eternal spear became a guide in philosophy, art, and exploration. Artists like Botticelli and Raphael painted visions where wisdom was alive. Philosophers quoted the ancients, bringing reason back into human hearts. Mathematics and science, once quiet, rose again like rivers after rain. Each formula, each discovery, echoed the sharp clarity of her wisdom. The spear was in the brushstrokes of paintings filled with balance and grace. It was in the compass that pointed explorers to unknown horizons. Athena's gift was not bound to temples. It thrived wherever minds dared to grow. When Copernicus turned the heavens inside out, the spear was in his hand. When Galileo raised his telescope, it gleamed with Athena's eternal light. When Da Vinci sketched inventions, the spear guided his restless imagination. It whispered to him that curiosity was the soul's greatest courage. In every discovery, there was a quiet echo of the goddess. Her spear pointed not at enemies, but at questions waiting to be asked. It pierced the veil of ignorance, the fog of fear, the weight of silence. And with each new step, humanity walked closer to clarity and truth. The Renaissance was not just art and science. It was the rebirth of wisdom. It was Athena's eternal promise, shining once more in marble and ink. Her spear stood not in battlefields, but in libraries and studios. It gleamed in candlelit rooms where students studied late into the night. It inspired leaders to build cities where knowledge could flourish. It reminded rulers that power without wisdom leads only to shadows. The eternal spear was also heard in music, soft yet profound. Composers lifted sounds into the air, creating harmony like divine balance. Athena's presence was subtle, yet everywhere, guiding hearts to higher ground. Through each canvas, book, and invention, her spear never left the world. It showed humanity that knowledge is not static, but always growing. The truth is not owned by one, but shared by all. The Renaissance was a chorus of voices, all echoing her eternal flame. The spear shone as a bridge between the past and the future. It reminded humanity that wisdom is eternal, waiting to be rediscovered. Every great age is lit not by power, but by the light of thought. And Athena's spear was that light, shining through centuries of silence. As the Renaissance ended, the world stepped into a new dawn. Exploration, invention, and curiosity grew beyond borders and oceans. And the eternal spear followed, guiding every hand that reached for truth. It remained, as always, a gift not of war, but of wisdom eternal. The Enlightenment rose like a flame, carried across nations hungry for light. It was an age where reason dared to question the old chains of tradition. Athena's eternal spear glowed in the hands of philosophers and dreamers. It did not rest in temples, but in the writings of thinkers across Europe. Voltaire raised his pen, and the spear gleamed in his sharp, clear words. Rousseau spoke of freedom, and the spear pointed to the dignity of all. Locke imagined rights born with every soul, and the spear shone in his vision. It became the voice of justice, equality, and the belief in human potential. The spear pierced through superstition, calling for knowledge and truth. In cafes, libraries, and academies, it became a symbol of new awakening. Athena's presence was quiet, yet her wisdom stood behind every bold idea. Her spear was in the experiments of Newton, who measured the cosmos with clarity. It guided Montesquieu when he balanced the scales of power in thought. It whispered to Mary Wollstonecraft as she demanded education for women. The eternal spear was not bound by crown, church, or boundary. It belonged to all who sought truth, reason, and light for humanity. Every debate, every page of ink, carried echoes of the goddess's wisdom. She was the unseen muse of a world demanding freedom and knowledge. Her spear was no longer divine myth. It was the very spirit of reason. It glowed in the Declaration of Independence, a promise of liberty. It gleamed in the words, "All men are created equal and beyond them." For Athena's wisdom reminded humanity that truth does not belong to kings. It belongs to every soul willing to see with clarity and courage. The Enlightenment was not without struggle, but the spear cut through fear. It did not wound. It illuminated paths once thought impossible to tread. It showed humanity that thought itself was a force stronger than weapons, that reason and justice could rebuild nations more than armies ever could. Artists, too, carried her light, painting visions of balance and progress. Composers wrote music that stirred minds as well as hearts. Athena's spear was in the rhythm of new ideas spreading like wildfire. It traveled by books, letters, and conversations whispered across continents. No wall or throne could contain the reach of wisdom eternal. The eternal spear guided revolutions, but not toward destruction. It pointed toward freedom, dignity, and the courage to dream anew. Athena's gift stood tall in the age of reason, unbroken and bright. It was carried not by warriors, but by thinkers, writers, and teachers. The goddess did not need to speak aloud. Her wisdom spoke for her. It spoke in every spark of curiosity and every challenge to blind power. The Enlightenment was her era of triumph. Her spear lifted high in truth. It reminded the world that wisdom is not silent. It is alive. It whispers to those who seek it and roars through the voice of progress. Athena's spear pierced through centuries of silence and superstition. It showed that human thought itself could be divine when used with care. The eternal spear glowed as a promise that reason is the path forward. And though the age passed, her light did not fade with time. It continued on, carried by each generation, seeking clarity and hope. For the eternal spear of wisdom is not a relic, but a living flame. And in the Enlightenment, it burned brighter than ever before. The story of Athena's spear has walked with us through centuries of change. It began in myth, yet it grew into something larger than temples or tales. The eternal spear has never been only of gods. It belongs to the human spirit. It is the courage to ask questions, even when answers feel far away. It is the strength to seek clarity, even when the world seems clouded. The spear does not demand obedience. It invites reflection and understanding. Its light is found in classrooms, libraries, and in quiet late-night thoughts. It shines when a teacher inspires a student to see beyond the ordinary. It glows when a leader chooses fairness over fear, justice over pride. It gleams in every act of curiosity, every honest step toward truth. Athena's gift is not a weapon, but a reminder that wisdom is eternal. It whispers that knowledge is sacred and truth can guide even the lost. The spear's point does not pierce flesh, it pierces the veil of ignorance. It is a symbol that thought itself can be a path toward peace. When we read, when we learn, when we share, we hold the spear. Every mind that dares to think carries a spark of Athena's gift. Every heart that listens to wisdom is part of her eternal legacy. The spear stands as a bridge between past and future, myth and reality. It teaches us that wisdom is not ancient. It is alive in every age. We see it in science pushing boundaries of the unknown with courage. We see it in art reflecting truth, beauty, and the depth of human soul. We see it in voices that rise for justice, equality, and compassion. The eternal spear reminds us that power without wisdom fades to shadow. But wisdom, even without power, can light the darkest corners of history. It is patient, enduring, unbroken, waiting for those ready to seek it. The spear of Athena is not hidden. It rests in the choices we make. It appears when we choose kindness, when we defend truth, when we learn. It shines when knowledge is shared freely, not hoarded or chained. It glows in the unity of people seeking a better, wiser world. The eternal spear does not belong to one nation or one people. It belongs to all humanity across cultures, times, and generations. Its promise is simple yet profound. Wisdom is the light of life. And like Athena, it calls us not to war, but to understanding. Not to conquest, but to growth, reason, and balance with each other. The eternal spear is here, now, in our hands, if we choose to lift it. It asks us to see beyond fear and embrace the clarity of thought. It asks us to build, to heal, to gut, and to dream with wisdom. The spear reminds us that even in silence, truth waits to be found. That even in confusion, clarity is possible when we seek with honesty. And so, as our story closes, the spear's light does not fade away. It shines brighter than ever, carried in the hearts of all who listen. Athena's wisdom is eternal, and her gift belongs to us all. Let us walk forward with her spear of wisdom as our guide. And may its eternal light lead us always toward truth, peace, and hope.